Welcome, dear viewers and subscribers. You are watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and today, February 28th, 2026, we have an exceptionally packed picture of world events to break down in detail. The day has turned out to be truly historic. Events are unfolding simultaneously across multiple theaters, and each one deserves the closest possible attention. Let's not waste any time. Let's get started. Iran, the beginning of a new major war in the Middle East. Perhaps the most significant and staggering event of today is the launch of a full-scale military operation by a joint coalition consisting of the United States of America and Israel against the Islamic Republic of Iran. From the very early hours of February 28, 2026, American and Israeli armed forces began delivering massive strikes against military and civilian infrastructure targets across the entire territory of Iran. The strikes were carried out simultaneously against numerous targets, and above all against the country's capital, the city of Tehran. President of the United States Donald Trump immediately addressed the nation and the international community with an official statement, clearly outlining both the goals and the motivations behind the military campaign that had begun. According to him, the operation was initiated with one single overriding purpose: to permanently and irrevocably strip Iran of any possibility of creating, acquiring, or using nuclear weapons. Trump declared that the Iranian regime poses a direct existential threat to the American people, and that for precisely this reason the military operation is, in the president's view, not an act of aggression, but a forced measure of self-defense. In addition, the head of the White House specifically emphasized that Tehran has for many years borne direct and undeniable responsibility for organizing and financing numerous attacks on American military bases and interests throughout the region. According to Trump, Washington's patience has been exhausted entirely, and the diplomatic avenues for resolving the Iranian nuclear issue have long been depleted. The US president also addressed the Iranian people directly. Trump called on ordinary Iranian citizens to seize the historic window of opportunity that has opened and to take to the streets of their cities in peaceful protest against the existing regime. Washington's logic here is transparent. Military strikes are intended to demoralize and undermine state institutions, while a civil uprising from within is meant to complete the dismantling of the regime. Trump stated explicitly that the operation will continue until the existing political system in Iran has been completely destroyed, and that the ultimate goal is not the occupation of Iranian territory, but the transfer of power into the hands of the Iranian people themselves. At least, that is how the official rhetoric from Washington sounds. The names under which the two coalition member states are conducting their respective operations carry particularly significant meaning. The American Department of Defense has officially designated its portion of the campaign Operation Epic Fury. Israel, in turn, has given its own operation the name Roar of the Lion. At first glance, this might appear to be an insignificant detail, but upon closer examination, this distinction carries quite important meaning. Two allied states, operating seemingly within the framework of a single coalition, are working under different command banners, and this is no accident. Either the parties were unable to agree on a unified command structure, or, which seems more likely, Israel and the United States are pursuing fundamentally different ultimate objectives in this operation. Washington, judging by its rhetoric, is primarily focused on eliminating the nuclear program and changing the political regime as such. Tel Aviv, on the other hand, appears to be concentrated on far more specific military tasks: destroying Iran's missile and drone capabilities, dismantling the structures of the IRGC, and eliminating the sprawling network of Iranian proxy formations throughout the Middle East, Hezbollah, the Houthis, pro-Iranian groups in Iraq and Syria. In effect, what we are dealing with are two parallel wars with different operational logics, being conducted under the same umbrella. Now, let us turn to how events unfolded on the ground. From the very early hours of the morning, dozens and then hundreds of videos and photographs capturing the strikes on the Iranian capital began appearing in the public domain. Tehran was literally burning on the smartphone screens of millions of people around the world. And it is precisely here that one of the most telling and perhaps most alarming facts of the day is revealed. The Iranian authorities failed to disconnect the internet for 4 to 5 hours after the start of the operation. This circumstance speaks eloquently to the complete unpreparedness of the Iranian state apparatus for this kind of scenario. The internet was not blocked until close to noon local time, by which point an enormous volume of documentary materials had already spread across the entire global information space. The response of the state management systems proved to be chaotic, belated, and frankly helpless. But the most astonishing failure was not the informational one. It was the military one. Despite the fact that following the events of the summer of 2025, Iran undertook massive efforts to strengthen its air defense system, with direct assistance from Russia and China, including deliveries of modern surface-to-air missile complexes, the establishment of satellite reconnaissance systems, and the exchange of intelligence data in real time. All of this once again produced virtually no result whatsoever. Israeli and American aircraft operated with the highest precision and essentially unimpeded. Iran's air defense was once again unable to provide even minimally effective protection for its own capital city. This raises extremely serious questions about the actual combat effectiveness of Russian and Chinese manufactured weapons systems, especially when facing a high-technology adversary equipped with modern electronic warfare assets and anti-radiation missiles. The strike on the residence of Iran's supreme leader deserves particular attention. The satellite images published today leave little room for interpretation. The building was completely destroyed as a result of a direct hit. This is a critically important moment because it clearly delineates the character of the current conflict from, for example, the war in Ukraine. On the Ukrainian theater of military operations, there is a de facto unspoken understanding. Neither side delivers deliberate strikes against the highest political leadership or attacks centers of strategic decision-making in major cities. In the Iranian conflict, no such restrictions exist. A strike against the residence of a head of state is not merely a military episode. It is an unambiguous signal that the conflict that has begun is total in nature and does not presuppose any traditional diplomatic red lines. Thus, February 28, 2026 will go down in history as the day on which a new major war in the Middle East began. A war whose consequences for the global balance of power, oil markets, the regional security architecture, and the lives of millions of people cannot be overstated. Ukraine, several front sectors undergoing fundamental changes. We now turn to the situation on the Ukrainian theater of military operations. Over the past 24 hours, a large number of significant reports have come in from various sectors of the front. Let us break down each of them in sequence. The Zaporizhzhia direction, the beginning of the general offensive. The Zaporizhzhia sector has today taken center stage in military reporting, and there are compelling reasons for this. The Russian army continues to rapidly develop its offensive in the westward direction, toward the city of Kharkiv, and today the front line has undergone quite significant changes. In order to understand the scale of what is happening, it is necessary to refer to the chronology of recent days. The starting point is February 23, 2026, the moment when Russian forces launched a decisive, coordinated offensive simultaneously against three key settlements in this sector: Rezhdvianka, Vozdvizhivka, and Verkhnya Tersa. By the end of February 24th, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially reported a significant improvement in positions in the Rezhdvianka area, and this information was reflected in an adjustment to the frontline map. Simultaneously, advances were recorded west of the settlement of Zaliznichne, Zheleznorozhnoye, confirmed by footage from objective control cameras. Russian units were conducting active aerial reconnaissance of the terrain using dozens of unmanned aerial vehicles, which the Ukrainian side was unsuccessfully attempting to shoot down over Vozdvizhivka and Verkhnya Tersa. By the end of February 25th, information came in about a breakthrough of the defensive line of the armed forces of Ukraine, southwest of Zaliznichne. After this, Russian forces sharply increased their pace of advance, rapidly closing the distance to Huliaipol and the system of strongpoints located along the perimeter of that settlement. By February 26th, regrouping was being completed ahead of the next thrust, and on the 27th, the first video materials appeared confirming the establishment of control over a railway junction in this direction. And now today, February 28th, the situation has reached a turning point. According to incoming data, the front line between Verkhnya Tersa and the Huliaipol defensive node has, in all likelihood, finally collapsed. The Russian army has substantially improved its positions in the pocket between Mern and Zaliznychne. Pro-Ukrainian mapping services, which traditionally take a conservative approach to depicting Russian advances, have also recorded the transfer of a number of territories to the control of Russian units. The culmination of the day came in the form of a report from the structures of the Eastern Military Group. Around midday, they published information stating that the defense of the settlement of Hirka had collapsed, and Ukrainian units had been forced to fall back to reserve positions. Russian forces have wedged themselves into the Ukrainian defensive line directly between Huliaipol and Verkhnya Tersa, thereby creating a threat to several key nodes of Ukrainian defense simultaneously. As for the subsequent operational logic, it is fairly evident. From the positions at Hirka, the Russian army will in all likelihood continue its movement in a southwesterly direction, with the goal of a deep envelopment of Huliaipol and a strike against the flank and rear of Ukrainian groupings. Simultaneously, an attempt is anticipated to encircle the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa, caught in a pincer between columns advancing from the north from Hirka and units moving from the northeast from Rezhdvianka. If this maneuver succeeds, the Ukrainian garrison at Zaporizhzhia and Verkhnya Tersa will find itself in a potential cauldron. It is also necessary to address the Ukrainian counter-offensive. The armed forces of Ukraine launched counter-strikes from the north in an attempt to eliminate the Russian bridgehead on the right bank of the Haicha River. However, Russian units managed to hold their gained positions, and today it can be stated with reasonable confidence that it is precisely from this bridgehead in the Huliaipol and Dobropolye area that what can rightfully be called the general Zaporizhzhia offensive of the Russian army has begun. As for the northern envelopment of this same direction, today another batch of video materials was published by the Eastern Group, dedicated to strikes on equipment and personnel of the AFU during the Ukrainian counter-offensive. A minor adjustment has been recorded in the area of the settlement of Vishnevo. Russian artillerymen are striking Ukrainian positions along a tree line. However, no major changes on the northern envelopment have yet been recorded, which possibly indicates that AFU Command is either conducting operational regrouping or reconsidering its original counter-offensive plans. The Kostyantynivka sector, the city gradually coming under control. We move on to the Kostyantynivka sector of the front. Here too, daily changes in favor of the Russian side are being recorded. And moreover, following the blowing of the dam in the northern part of the city, the pace of these changes has noticeably accelerated. Daily map adjustments are occurring primarily in the southern, southwestern, and southeastern directions. If we return to the cartographic snapshot from February 22nd, that is, to the situation that preceded the blowing of the dam, and compare it with the current picture, the scale of the changes that have occurred becomes quite vivid. After the dam in the northern part of Kostyantynivka was destroyed, the Russian army immediately exploited the resulting tactical window and began actively pushing through the Ukrainian defense in the southern part of the city, systematically seizing building after building, structure after structure along the city's periphery. As of the end of February 28, 2026, it can be stated with reasonable confidence that Russian units control approximately 15 to 20% of Kostyantynivka's territory. The city is gradually but inexorably coming under Russian control. In parallel, active fighting has broken out to the east of Kostyantynivka, in the area of the extensive system of strongpoints located between the settlements of Chervone, Stupochki, and Predtekine. According to incoming information, some of the strongpoints and tree lines in this area have already come under the control of Russian units. The strategic importance of this node is difficult to overstate. Should the Ukrainian side lose control of it, Russian forces will gain a nearly unobstructed path to Novodmitrivka and to the northeastern quarters of Kostyantynivka itself, which would sharply accelerate the pace of the city's capture. The Lyman sector, caution in assessments. In the Lyman direction, today's situation calls for a balanced and cautious approach to assessments, as the incoming information is contradictory in nature. Yesterday, a video from the central part of the settlement of Drobyshev was published in the public domain. In this footage, a Russian flag is clearly visible, raised in the center of the town. However, no presence of Russian personnel was recorded on camera. We took a cautious approach to immediately adjusting the map on the basis of this video alone. Today, however, a number of pro-Russian analysts and experts have colored the central part of Drobychev on their maps in favor of the Russian side. It is possible that this information does indeed correspond to the actual situation on the ground, in which case the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation should officially confirm the capture of the settlement in the near future. However, we have compelling reasons to refrain from any unequivocal map adjustment. The reason is straightforward. Literally on the same day, an analogous but mirror image episode played out on the territory of the settlement of Nesteryanka. A Ukrainian drone dropped a Ukrainian flag onto structures in the northern part of the village. Naturally, the appearance of a flag dropped from a UAV is in no way evidence of actual AFU control over that locality. It may be an element of the information war, a propaganda gesture, or an attempt to create an illusion of presence. By the same logic, we cannot unambiguously interpret the flag in Drobychev either. Therefore, the central part of this settlement will for now remain in the grey zone on our maps until more substantial evidence is obtained. The Kharkiv direction, new advances along the border. We conclude today's overview with news from the Kharkiv direction, from which quite important and concrete information is arriving. The Northern Military Group, together with the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, today officially reported a significant improvement in positions along the state border line, and in particular, an advance and consolidation in the area of the settlement of Neskuchna. For context, let us recall, at the very beginning of February 2026, the Russian army managed to advance in the area of the settlement of Zelin. This occurred approximately on February 1st. From that moment, fierce positional fighting has apparently been underway in this direction. And now, exactly 28 days later, to the day, information has come in about a new advance and consolidation on the next line. This indicates that despite its apparent slowness, Russian units are systematically and methodically grinding through the Ukrainian defensive line along the state border. The next target in this sector is in all likelihood the settlement of Veseloye. Bringing this settlement under control is critically important for the following reason. Running through it is a key supply road connecting Liptsi with areas to the east and further on, with the large forested area in the Vovchansk sector. In the event of a physical severing of this route, AFU units in the northeast of this sector will find themselves in a considerably more vulnerable position. The logistical leg will increase substantially, the timeframes for moving up reinforcements and ammunition supplies will grow, and the operational flexibility of Ukrainian commanders in this sector will noticeably diminish. Today's overview concludes here, friends. Without any exaggeration, it can be stated that February 28, 2026 has become one of the most event-filled days in recent months. On one hand, the birth of a completely new large-scale armed conflict in the Middle East, one capable of fundamentally reformatting the entire regional order. On the other, the continuation and clear acceleration of the Russian offensive across several sectors of the Ukrainian front, with today making it possible to confidently speak of the beginning of a general offensive in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Both of these processes will continue to develop, and we will keep tracking their progress in upcoming broadcasts. Thank you for watching and staying with us. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes. This genuinely matters for the growth of the project. All the best to you until the next broadcast.